And so we were like, what's fun that's not McDonald's, that's a drive-through? And we were like, Java-Mos.
We had sat down and talked, and we were like, all right, let's do it. Why not? We've learned enough about coffee. We both have the ambition. We can figure out investors later. Like, let's just move and try. So that's what we did. And then, 6 months after moving here, we had our first shop. So.
Welcome to the Startup Heroes Podcast, a place to learn about business from local Chattanooga superheroes sharing their entrepreneurial journey, their superpowers, kryptonite, sidekicks, and villains. You'll learn about the principles and actions it took these founders to build their dreams, and hopefully be inspired to do the same. Thank you for listening.
All right. Hello. Welcome to the episode 00 of Startup Heroes. My name is Chris Wood. I'm one of the owners of Be Caffeinated and HiveThink Media. And today we're doing an interview of our core members here to work out all of our kinks and figure out how this works, and then kind of introduce you to who we are. So we're going to go around and introduce ourselves. Nate, would you like to introduce yourself?
I can go.
All right, Dylan.
Dang it. So I'm Dylan. I'm also a founder at HiveThink Media. I've known Chris and Doug for about 5 months now, right? That long. Yeah. We've kind of like made a business together, which is kind of cool after 5 months of friendship and knowing each other. So it's super fun. I'm currently working a full-time job at the Sasha Group, working with some like clients like the cannabis space and kind of just like home goods and like snack goods spaces. I'm having a blast learning a lot, and then hopefully bringing this to HiveThink so we can also help out small businesses in our area. Super excited to be here. And then Nathan is my counterpart. So him and I work together very well. We've started Scenic Trend, Chattanooga's arts magazine. We started with Leaker magazine with our friend Philip, who now is a big artist, and he does really great stuff. But yeah, Leaker was a hip-hop magazine, and then we went to Scenic Trend, and then we met Chris and Doug, worked at BCAF on the marketing side and some barista side, and then now we are here with HiveThink.
I'm Nathan Tucker, as Dylan just introduced me. I gotta sit in my hands. Okay. I'm Nathan Tucker, as Dylan just introduced me. Me and Dylan have been friends since like middle school. And since then we've started like several businesses together, including, as you mentioned, Leaker Magazine. And now we are joining up with Chris and Doug to start HiveThink. And we've been also working with Be Caffeinated. We love marketing and being able to help like small businesses in Chattanooga. So that's a big part of why we are starting this, is because we want to be able to take that to the next level.
I am Douglas Lee. I'm also one of the co-founders of Be Caffeinated. Yeah, that's about it.
What's your role at Be Caffeinated?
I lift heavy things. No, I keep inventory stocked. I keep ordering going. I try to fix things as best as I can and stuff like that.
He's being humble. He basically makes sure that the business actually can work. So that's cool. We're just 4 guys here, and then one of the the other person in the room with us is Michael Ardenzable. Michael, do you want to come over on this mic real quick and introduce yourself?
Hey, how's it going, buddy?
Good. What's up? I'm covering up my own face. My name is Michael Ardenzable. Last name kind of sounds like water bottle, but just it's Michael. That'll work. I do lots of things: art, video, photo, design, and I help with that kind of stuff.
Yeah, that's awesome. He's kind of being our foray into the video world, because none of us know how to do any of that, and he's done a lot of awesome stuff with it. If any of you are familiar with Gary Vee, he's our D-Rock, so we'll call him M-Rock or something. M. Night Shyamalan.
Shyamalan.
But yeah, so we're going to just kind of talk to each other, kind of share our origin stories. The format of Startup Heroes is going to be interviewing some small business owners in Chattanooga, finding out what their superpowers are, what their weaknesses are, or kryptonite, who their sidekicks are, and like kind of digging into their origin stories and finding out why they started their business, how it's going, stuff they've learned, and just gonna be a really fun insight into the Chattanooga small business scene, which for those of you that are familiar with it know that it's really big, really fun, and it's doing some really cool stuff. So we're going to start with actually Nate and Dylan interviewing Doug and I about the origins of Be Caffeinated, and then we'll kind of switch after that into us interviewing them about Scenic Trend. So if y'all want to go ahead and take it off.
Yeah, for sure. So let's start with you, Chris. So tell us a bit about yourself. I know you're from Hattiesburg. So tell us about your upbringing and like how you first entered the business world.
Yeah, so like you said, I was born in Hattiesburg, Mississippi. Doug was as well. For those of you, most of you that won't know, it's about an hour or so from the coast in the Gulf of Mexico in Mississippi. It's an hour and a half east of New Orleans, which is kind of really fun. And then it's where Brett Favre lives and went to college, which is basically the only reason that really puts us on the map a lot of times. But I lived there. I moved to Texas, lived there for 6 years, moved to Florida, lived there for 5 years, back to Hattiesburg, and then Chattanooga. So when people ask where I'm from, I kind of say I'm just from the South because I've lived in most of it. I grew up, my mom has been a teacher and principal and professor. My dad's been in the economic development world. So I've kind of been involved and exposed to a lot of like teaching and business components. So I think that's kind of transformed me into someone that loves both sides of that. I really enjoy how businesses work. I love games, and I feel like business is just the real life game. It's the game. I went to college at University of Southern Mississippi, ended up with an entrepreneurship degree, went to get my master's MBA. And then Doug and I became roommates, but that's a later story. So,
Doug, can you tell us a bit about your upbringing and like how you and Chris first like became friends?
Yeah. So my upbringing, I was born and raised in South Mississippi. Technically born in Gulfport, raised in Hattiesburg. Moved there like when I was 6 months old. Didn't really have a whole lot going on for me there. I think Chris and I knew each other like in passing from college at the BSU. Actually became friends through another friend of ours because I was invited to a Bible study that Chris ran. And then, Bible study turned into him asking me to be a roommate. And I said yes. And then we lived together for a year. And that's pretty much how it all started for us.
Tell us about bro cones.
So bro cones was a very spur of the moment idea. My aunt and uncle had owned a snow cone stand in South Mississippi, and they made pretty good money. And when Chris and I were roommates, I very spontaneously, jokingly said, "Hey, we should totally open up a snow cone stand," as a joke. And Chris was like, "No, let's do it." So it never would have happened without him, having the seriousness behind it. So as soon as he said, "Yeah, let's do it," we bought a little trailer. We built a mobile bar top on the trailer.
Well, before that, remember, we rented a machine first to see if it would work. And then it went pretty well. And then we had our table set up. Yeah. And I forgot about that until yesterday, I think. Dylan and I were digging through our Brocone stuff. And I was like, oh my gosh. We had the blue checkered tablecloth.
Oh, God.
We lined up the syrup bottles, and we had that giant piece of wood that we painted Brocones on. It was the jankiest setup ever.
Yep.
And then we got it kind of going, and that's when the trailer happened.
Yeah. So I guess once we went through that process and realized that we could actually make a little bit of money on it, that's when we invested into it. Because I think in total to get it up and running, we spent probably like $3,000 maybe in total after all was said and done. And it was a surprisingly decent little setup. It was pretty neat looking. It was a lot of fun. It wasn't really anything to live on by any means, but it was extra ramen noodle money. So had a lot of fun doing it. I think we kept it going for like 2 summers, and that was about it.
And the fun part of Brocones was we did alcoholic snow cones. So he worked at a pub so we were able to kind of bounce off of their liquor license and use their alcohol. So we didn't actually make the money from the alcohol, they did. But our penultimate creation was the Piña de Hermano, which is pineapple brother in Spanish. And so my uncle's family owns and runs a produce company in Hattiesburg. So we got really cheap pineapples from him. And so on the truck trailer, we just had this giant knife, and we'd take a pineapple and we'd cut it, and then we had a pineapple core. And so we would take out the pineapple core, put that in a cup, give it to the people to eat the pineapple, and then we'd use the pineapple as the snow cone cup. And so we'd have the snow cone and the syrup, and then a shot of whatever liquor they wanted. So like vodka, tequila, and rum.
Yeah.
And so it was just this crazy thing. We started taking off when we left, so I feel like if we had stuck around, it could have really been a thing. But
yeah, I still get emails about renting us out.
Yeah.
I'm like, we haven't been there in 3 years.
Yeah,
like
it's
chill.
great. And so our two biggest event, or I guess we did, two big ones. No, 3 were our bread and butter. We did a sorority event where a sorority house rented us out to just have unlimited snow cones for their girls.
Yep.
We did a couple birthday parties that were fun, and we started making snowballs out of some of the ice, and that was a blast. And then we did one event, what was it called, in front of the Porter, that was the big
the Hub City shoot, I forget.
It's like the Hattiesburg equivalent of like what's the big Chattanooga event, like Maine by 30 or 30 by Maine, or
Oh, I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
It was just basically downtown Hattiesburg just had a bunch of stuff going on. So we set up and just sold a lot of snow cones. But yeah, we learned a lot of good stuff and a lot of stuff not to do. And we took a lot of those principles and kind of brought them to Be Caffeinated. So.
Was that the first like business venture you guys did separately? Or like...
You mean together?
Yeah, together. Or to kind of like rephrase that, like, did you guys have any like other entrepreneurial experience before Bro Cones?
Yeah. It was the first one together. As a kid, my parents always told me that I was either going to be a lawyer because I love to argue, or an entrepreneur because I tend to have an issue with authority.
They were spot on.
Yeah, so I was the kid on the side of the road that would sell lemonade. I remember I tried making homemade candy one time. I tried copying like Snickers and all those. I made candy bars and sold them on the side of the road. They were terrible, but people still bought them.
You made candy bars?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's fascinating.
I would take, all the general ingredients, melt them down, mix them together, and I sold candy bars on the side of the road.
That's awesome.
Was that safe? Like
no. I mean, like, at the end of the day,
we do not condone this at all.
Yeah, for all I know, like, I poisoned someone. But yeah, candy bars, lemonade. I would always try and mow people's yards. I remember one of the things that made me really mad about that was one of my neighbors told me that they would pay me to pick up pine cones in their yard, and I spent like 2 hours doing it, and then they gave me $1. That made me angry.
That's 50 cents an hour.
Freaking Miss Brown, I really dislike you.
Calling you out, Miss Brown.
But yeah, I mean, ever since then, I kind of knew that I wanted to be my own boss, and it wasn't until years later that, things actually came to fruition. So,
I also had my own experiences. They were all failures. Terrible failures. As a kid, I didn't do as much of the actual entrepreneurial stuff that Doug did, but I had this recurring theme that I didn't realize until later in video games, where I loved games that had some sort of economy system. And I thought it was normal. And then I realized that none of my other friends really played these games. And I would like Port Royale 2. It's like this game where you can buy like pirate ships or galleons or whatever, and it's basically just the Gulf of Mexico, and you go from town to town and you buy corn for cheap, and you go to another port and sell it for a lot. And I thought it was the most amazing thing ever. And then literally a couple years ago, I was like, oh my gosh, I've always loved business. I just didn't know what I was actually enjoying about the game. And so when I was in high school, I really enjoyed, we had this snack bar that one of the classes ran, and when it was our turn to run it, I really, really liked that. And then when I got to college, I had a couple ventures, and one of them was made by Mississippi. And I kind of took the idea. I bought the idea from one of my friends because I thought it was amazing and fascinating. And he'd kind of built up a little bit of a presence. And so I paid him money and took it over. And basically the concept was a subscription box that had Mississippi products in it. I focused on Hattiesburg. And it was an awesome idea. I did it pretty well. But what I learned from that is don't buy your product before you have people that want to buy. So I still to this day in my closet have like 40 Mississippi candles because no one wanted to buy. So I started with like I don't know, $2,000, and I spent like all of it buying candles and popcorn and all this stuff. And I didn't really make my money back, but I learned a lot of lessons from that drastic failure. So, and then we did bro codes. It was not as much of a failure. So, yeah.
So how does bro cones lead to, first of all, like you guys gained like the coffee industry, and your like first experiences with that, and then taking you like all the way to Chattanooga from Mississippi to start your own coffee business here? What's the story of that?
So coffee was never in our mind when we started Bro Cones at first. I think at the time, Chris was either...
I was at McDonald's.
Yeah, you were at McDonald's.
With an MBA.
And not too long after, I think he started working at a place called Java Mo's as a manager.
No. So here's what happened, Doug. Remember, I was at McDonald's and I overheard my manager say that 80% of their sales was through the drive-thru.
Yep.
And we were like, what? And so we were like, what's fun that's not McDonald's, that's a drive-thru? And we were like, Java Mo's.
Yep.
And then that's when we got jobs there.
Yeah, so we both got jobs. He had his job before I did. It took me a little while to kind of get into a position where I could actually, start working there. Chris had recently gotten married, and then, they were talking about wanting to move. They picked Chattanooga because Chris's family was here, and it's a great city and all that kind of stuff. And, I really didn't like Mississippi, so I needed a way out. And, we had sat down and talked, and we were like, all right, let's do it. Why not? We've learned enough about coffee. We both have the ambition. We can figure out investors later. Like, let's just move and try. So that's what we did. And then, 6 months after moving here, we had our first shop. So,
yeah, it was pretty insane looking back on it. More so for Doug because I had a safety net. I had my parents here. Doug was like, I'm going all in.
Yep.
And it's really, really cool to think about. And so when we moved here, Doug got a job at Longhorns. I got a job. I was surfing around, ended up getting temp to perm stuff from Robert Half, worked at Covenant Solutions for a couple months. Was told that there wasn't a spot for me anymore the week before Christmas, which was, at the time, I was not happy, but looking back was the best thing that could have happened because I was told on that Friday that I wouldn't have a job anymore. The Monday before that, Jasmine had got her job offer at like an accounting job that was making more than I was making. So we were good in that regard. And then we got to go and spend 2 weeks in Mississippi before all of that started. So then I spent the next like 5 to 7 months just like focusing on Be Caffeinated. If I'm being really transparent, it was the worst 5 to 7 months of my life. I was an anxious wreck. I was an insomniac. I was just stressed all the time. I was like, we got to get this going, but I don't know what I'm doing. But it eventually worked out. We got really lucky in our investors. We got the guy that owns Java Mo's to be one of our investors because we basically were like, hey man, like this is what we want to do. Will you help us? And he was like, yeah. I mean, he was basically like, because it's you guys, I'm intrigued.
Yeah, it was the way it was worded made it seem like anyone else that asked him, it would have been a no, because I think he saw that we were, two pretty well-rounded guys with level heads and that weren't really joking around all that much.
Yeah, and then we were able to get some funding from some of our family, and that's something we've been really grateful for. That not only that ability is there, but that they trust us enough to give us some money. And so we use that really limited funding to go into this little dinky, used to be a drive-through hamburger store shack in the middle of a parking lot in Red Bank, Tennessee, which is an enclave surrounded by Chattanooga. And we were convinced that our main market would be people driving to work. And then little did we know that Red Bank, the neighborhood, would just completely fall in love with us and us with them. And day one, we did a 2-day soft opening, and then day one we had regulars already. It was insane, and it's been amazing ever since. And yeah, coffee is not, we didn't do it because we love coffee. We did it because we saw the potential for it. And now we've fallen, I think now, speaking for myself, I think also for Doug, we really love coffee now. But it was always business first, and then coffee is our medium. And now we're building this really cool thing that kind of happiness is our priority. We want our people to be happy. We want to be happy. We kind of look at it as the golden rule of we want it to be a place where we would want to work. And I think it's really, really succeeding so far. So, yeah.
So the big running theme that I've noticed with you guys, with all these ventures, and also like with your like relationship with me and Dylan, is spontaneity. You guys, you're very like unafraid of just kind of going like, what if we did this, and then actually doing it. Like Dylan said, like we haven't known you guys for maybe like 6 or 7 months, and it's entirely just like on a whim. You like decide to speak with us about like being your marketing guys at Be Caffeinated.
I'm glad that's what we put off. But that could not be farther from the truth. It's disguised as spontaneity.
It's calculated.
It's very calculated.
Yeah.
I think the correct verbiage would be more opportunity driven, and potential driven. But if you guys knew how much we'd thought about stuff, and like Jasmine, which is my wife, we had like 18 hours in the car over the last week. And I mean, we're just constantly bouncing ideas off each other. We go through these what if scenarios. We're listening to Gary Vee podcasts and stuff. So a lot of the decisions that seem kind of like effortless or spontaneous are actually with like hours and hours of consideration and risk assessment. And I mean, when we started the Red Bank shop, we were with Spencer, who's our equipment guy. And we were like really torn up about what kind of ice cube machine we should get. And he was like, if you guys are putting this much thought into the type of cube that's coming out of your machine, I think you guys will be fine. Because we were like, do we want quarter cube, half cube, or full cube? And we were like, well, if we do, or chipped ice. Yeah. We were like, if we do chipped ice and quarter cube, that's really good for like frappes and stuff, but it won't keep the drinks cold long. If we do full cube, it'll be really hard to blend, but it'll keep the drink cold longer. So it landed on half cube. Yep. We're like, we're going to compromise. But like we had literal hour conversations about what kind of ice cube do we want. But we definitely give off a spontaneous vibe, which I think is just more us trying to not seem psychotic.
Yeah. Sometimes you do need to be spontaneous though. Cause at the end of the day, if you don't take risks, and you choose the safe route, you very well could end up just like, 20 years down the road, unhappy with the job, and looking back, you regret not taking the risk. I think there was I forget who said it. He said something along the lines of, I'd rather be sleeping on my friend's futon at 40 years old rather than not taking the risk of doing something. And no, I had that wrong. He would rather be sleeping on a friend's futon because his business failed than sleeping in like a king size bed in a luxury apartment or something because he took a safe job.
Yep.
Because the potential of taking the risk is far higher than taking the safe route. A lot of people, their jobs have ceilings. We don't. We can keep going. As long as we keep making good decisions, we have no ceiling. So,
and the great thing is, even if we make bad decisions, we've set up these systems where it's okay. And I think Doug and I both are really firm believers in intuition and like gut feelings. Is that fair for you?
Yeah.
I think we tend to not use this word, but we go off of vibes, especially for like people we hire. And so I think, the Gary V. Simon Sinek thing is like, it's risk with, it's calculated risk, or, using all of the facts that you have to do it. But at the end of the day, it's kind of like, if there's a split second decision, you just go with what feels right. And the philosophy that I really enjoy and my wife and I talk about all the time is playing the table. And so when you're in a poker game, there's all these possibilities and variables. And so if there's cards in front of you and you make a certain decision and it turns out it was wrong, like you look back and say, oh, I wish I'd done that. But like you were just playing the table, you were doing the best decision that you could at the time with the information present. And so that kind of changed my perspective on a lot of stuff, because I was looking back and be like, man, if only I'd known that Dogecoin was going to take off when it did, but I was playing the table. I was with as much information as I had at the moment. I made the best decision I could. And I just have to live with knowing that past Christopher was doing the best he could, and respect that future Christopher is going to do the same. And I think kind of leaning into that has helped at least me a lot.
Yeah, I've looked back on a lot of my past self's decisions, and some of them I look back and I say, man, you're stupid. And, now, I mean, when you look back at yourself and you think that's growth. Like, if you look back at yourself and you cringe and you get upset at yourself or anything like that, it means you're a new person and you've been making better decisions. So even though, yeah, it sucks looking back at yourself, you've grown as a person. You've gotten better at pretty much everything you've done. And as of right now, like, I have seen where we've both taken this, and I wouldn't have imagined it. So I think we're in a pretty good position. So
it's been 2 years. Can't wait for 2 more.
Yep.
So based on all of that, what would you guys say is your superpower as startup heroes?
Like our personal one or the business superpower? I guess.
Ooh, that's a good question. Yeah. I didn't think of that. Yeah. Okay.
Let's do business superpower.
I like that. Yeah.
Start with business and then maybe break into personal too.
Yes.
Let's do it.
That's good.
Doug, what's our business's superpower?
Dylan, you should ask it.
Our business's superpower.
Laser vision.
That's a tough one. Shoot, I feel like I mean, if you look at Be Caffeinated from like, above or whatever, and you just see the overall impact, we have great customers, and we have great customers because we make them happy. Like at the end of the day, that's our goal. Is, one thing I was trained as a server is my job before those people walk out the door is to make sure that they're happy. And I think that's what we do as a company is, we try our absolute best to make sure that they get, the drink they want, the drink they love, and they drive away from that window happy. So I think we just brighten everyone's day as soon as they get that cup of coffee. So,
yeah, our slogan is "Be happy, be caffeinated." So I think that's definitely on point. I think we've also found a way to. What was your slogan you came up with that was amazing that we did in the co-starters? Cafe
quality drive-through convenience or something.
Yeah, that's it. So cafe quality drive-through convenience. That's actually our business model. And then Be Happy, Be Caffeinated is our stance on interactions with customers. So I think our superpower is like taking really good coffee and giving it to people really quickly. And the entire experience for them is a smiling, happy barista. Cause like, I don't know about you guys, but I've definitely been to a Starbucks where I know the person behind the counter wishes they were anywhere but there. And that sucks. And we don't want that for our people. We want them to be happy. And that just passes on to the customer. So yeah, That's our business superpower.
So what's the kryptonite of Be Caffeinated?
Money.
Yeah. I mean, that if you look at it as a business standpoint, yeah, we can only do so much right now. Other than that, I can't. It'll take me a second to think of an actual kryptonite.
I think in the context of coffee, our perceived kryptonite would be that we don't do the fancy stuff. We don't do latte art.
Yeah.
We don't hand tamp everyone. And so that's, I think, what a lot of people would say ours is, but I don't actually see that as kryptonite. I see that as an intentional decision. So that's kind of like the fake kryptonite that we let people try and throw at us. And I think our real kryptonite would be, probably just a line of credit. A line of credit would be phenomenal. Our business is completely cash flow. So if we had to close for 2 weeks, things would not be good. That's probably our kryptonite at this point. We're working on it.
Yep.
But opening stuff is a lot of money. So.
Yeah. So, do you guys ever see yourselves kind of opening like a Be Caffeinated that follows a strict cafe model?
Under the right circumstances, sure.
Like Chat State, technically.
Yeah.
Do you mean like with the fancy stuff?
Yeah, like mugs, latte art, no like drive-through, just cafe.
I would say still under the right circumstances. It was one thing, when we looked at that building with those doctors not too long ago, one of the things that I said, the building was so large and you don't need that much space. I was like, okay, we can do the cafe, we can do all that kind of stuff, and we still have all this extra space. Start another business inside of it, make our own syrups, make our own pastries, like whatever. So if the cafe had the potential to incorporate other things into it, I'd be more than happy to do it, because then it makes it well worth it. Otherwise, cafes and things like that are typically, low traffic, and they cater to a specific demographic a lot of times, and that alone limits you. And I don't like limits. So
I think he just touched on one of our other superpowers, which might be technically more personal ones than business ones, but might not. We're always looking for a way to vertically integrate. Like we got really, really lucky and were able to open a roasting company with someone that we'd already been working with. And so it went from us, and it wasn't begrudgingly, like we were very happy to work with Mad Priest and Velo and the people we were working with, but it went from us paying them money every week to basically paying ourselves every week for the coffee. And then Doug has started a distribution company where he's become a wholesale distributor for syrups and cups and stuff, which means we get it cheaper, and now we can also sell it to other people. And so we're in like the marketing HiveThink that has spun out is literally also vertical integration of now, instead of me paying someone to do our marketing, we're making money on the marketing. So we're just constantly looking for ways to do that. And our North Shore shop was actually originally intended as a roaster with a coffee shop attached to it. It kind of feels like it's a drive-through coffee shop with a roaster in it, but like we went into it as how can we subsidize the cost of a roaster? So that's kind of our mindset is always, I mean, it's like I said earlier, it's business minded. And so we're always looking for how can we be efficient? How can we have the highest quality possible? And how can we do what we want to do and make money at the same time? So.
Fantastic.
We good?
I'd say so. Yeah,
awesome.
Thank you guys. Great responses.
This podcast brought to you by HiveThink Media. If you like this podcast and you want to stay in the know of what's going on with us, follow us at HiveThink Media on Instagram or check us out at hivethinkmedia.com. Thank you for listening.